I will ask Colin about the new profile of learners workshop. So just tell us a little bit about your impressions and especially what you will take from it.
Well, I thought it was a very interesting concept because certainly in the public environment our profile of learners has changed dramatically in the last number of years. For example, the number of mature students or students that are returning to education after potentially a very sizable gap since the last time they were in formal education is in some of our colleges up to 50% of the students, of the total student cohort would be mature students. And there's a one of the questions that I asked was how can colleges best respond to that question. One of the other things that was discussed was in relation to e-learning and blended learning and how students now can simply get everything from the internet, whatever subject or whatever area you're researching. If you put it into Google, the first response that you get back, how can we ensure that students do a greater amount of research than simply just pulling the first result from Google. And one of the things that we spoke about yesterday was giving students more training in terms of referencing and in terms of broadening the number of sources they potentially will have. But one of the things that I suppose I felt that was, the seminar would have been even better if when the question was asked and a group went away to discuss it, that the person who originally asked the question should perhaps brief that group to make sure that the question that they wanted answered was the question that the group actually went off and did. Because if there's one thing as a student you're told, answer the question you're asked, not the question you wish that you were asked. So that's one thing I suppose to take forward.
Okay, thank you. Are there, with regard to the discussion group or the workshop 1 on the new learners, are there any comments from you? Anything you would like to add from your experience? Many of you have been to the workshop. You needn't if you think it's not necessary. Don't feel forced. But if you want to, then speak up now. Okay, no further comments. Or have I? Yeah, no further comments. Just right now, Andrea, you will briefly report on how to cope with large numbers of students, right? Okay, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I would overall like to say I think it was a very good discussion group. Had a very good input and also very good moderation. Being also from the European Students' Union, to some degree this might be a bit flattering to my colleague, but I think it was a very good discussion group. What I will take home. Often I think what is being thought of when we talk about how to individualize mass teaching, we talk about how to more effectively use ICT tools, information and communication technologies. And that is of course what we also talked about and had some interesting ideas on how to do this. So I think that's important, but we also pointed out that it's very crucial to combine ICT tools and software programs and so on with a very tailored method of how to teach and how to facilitate as a teacher, so that just individualizing mass teaching isn't done with just more ICT tools, but that it's really both needed. And then we sort of discovered that there's a lack of knowledge and sensitivity often about what that means, having a large group of students. So we also discussed that that would be good if more sensitivity and awareness raising would be done. Maybe also through more research centers in Europe on education, higher education, on pedagogy, because a lot is being done in the US and maybe in Europe not enough yet. And but then the class level is very important, but we also concluded that an institutional supportive structure is very important, because the overall university and faculty and whatever needs to be supportive to that in terms of technical facilities, but also in terms of guidance to students and also teacher further training. So there needs to be a whole atmosphere and environment to support student-centered learning, which can then tailor to a wide mass of students. And then lastly, we struggled a bit about the problem, which is that it's different how the student-centered learning system will look like according to how it has been triggered. Because if it's just being triggered because education is more and more a private good, being paid by students, high tuition fees and somehow something, then it's very difficult for students not to just act as consumers, because that's how they feel. They teach, they get teach because they paid for it, and if that is the situation and if that is the culture, then it's difficult to actually learn how to critically think, how to engage with problems that students also have, how to actually get to this analytical and critical level of thinking. So we concluded also that it's very difficult in a system of privatized education with high fees for students to actually overcome their burden and not just be willing to be entertained by universities. So it is very important to keep up an institutional system that is supporting students as participants and not as consumers.
So would you then also suggest that institutions should develop something like a teaching and learning philosophy?
Yeah.
Now, philosophy in the broad sense of the term, but in order to set all that in motion, you need training programs. You need, as you said, some maybe more research on how learning processes are being conducted or might be conducted.
Yeah, indeed. We also said, now we're all very enthusiastic about student-centered learning, that's why we're here and about, but of course it's difficult to bring it down to the colleagues, to motivate them, and for that indeed more training is needed, more research is needed, and an overall culture in a way of, and that is probably also engaging all the teachers in discussions and in trainings, so to give them opportunities.
Yeah. Okay. Any comments from you? Okay. Good point, right? Wim was dealing also with the learning outcomes in teaching and in assessment, and I think assessment is another important point with regard to the modernization of curricula. Wim, what were your impressions, and what are you going to take home?
Well, I was in fact very happy that I've chosen that working group, because it brought us in a way back to the essentials of what we're all doing at home. It brought us back to some basic principles of didactics, and that was very important. What did we learn in that session? That learning outcomes are in fact a common language that we can use to discuss our programs with each other. It facilitates us to compare our programs, but it also gives the possibility to emphasize the diversity of our programs. So that was very important. Another thing that I take home that is that defining and formulating learning outcomes is in fact designing a whole educational program. It's not just only formulating objectives. When you start formulating your objectives, you are in fact defining also at the same time your teaching method. And at the same time also your assessment, your way of assessment. Yes? And that is in fact very essential in teaching and learning. I think that was very important in that session, that Mr. Kennedy could bring a fuzzy concept like learning outcomes, bring it back to the essentials of learning, basic principles like using a taxonomy, designing a program from objective to assessment in one way. Yeah? That is very important. Downsizing the fuzzy concept of learning outcomes.
Okay. Any comments? No. And maybe we have your impressions of the fifth group, I think.
Yes, we worked on finding what was the wrong thing in real examples of program learning outcomes. So it was the easy part. We quickly finished the job. Then we were asked to write down 3 learning outcomes for history, master program history. And I was in a group of colleagues where no one was from history background, so it was not an easy job at all. What I will bring back home is on 2 different levels. The first one, I am head of the department in charge of an engineering program. So we have already done the work, and it gave me the possibility of seeing again that there is not one unique way of writing down learning outcomes, but there is always room for improvement, and this was a confirmation of that knowledge. The second one is, as I am part of the Bologna Experts Group for Turkey, we are continuously organizing this type of training sessions and using the same format of workshops, and it gave me the possibility of also checking our ways of approaching people, both students and professors, and helping perhaps it will help us help them in the future much better than we've done until now. So thank you to Yannick and Robert again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Peter has volunteered to give his overall impressions. You said you didn't want to, you've been to several workshops, you didn't want to discuss any particular workshop, but you would like to give an overall impression. By the way, as you can see, we are glad we have Bologna reform experts, we have higher education reform experts, we have students, we have teachers, we have administrators, so we get a good mix in this type of seminar. So Peter, what was your impressions?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank to the organizers, to University of Oslo, to European Commission, and UNICA and the others who have prepared all of this for us. For me, this was an excellent experience for 5 days actually, because I came 2 days earlier when it was very beautiful weather, so I had time to explore the Oslo, and the Oslo is a really beautiful town where in the future maybe I would like to go on with my studies or maybe with life, never mind. But what is most important for me during these 2 work days is that I've been with Bologna expert, with higher education expert, and I've heard the experience of countries where there is a good practice of new way of learnings and other things we have spoken in these 2 days. What I'll try to do is to bring back home the experience I got here, to organize maybe some also similar workshops to see that other higher education reform experts from my country be involved and to do something more about it. I hope we will manage it.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Will you just keep the microphone? My second question to you, to all of you, would actually be, would you have any particular suggestions for further development, not to say improvement, but further development of this type of seminar? Any new ideas that you got? Anything that you think where we might go on?
What I know that I'm looking forward to the next seminar in Lisbon, and what I know that organizers will have a tough task to do it even better. So
organizers will try their best. Just pass on the microphone. We'll just go through.
For me, I think the best thing, I must admit, and sorry for all the organizers and all the contributors to the workshops, etc., which I found very interesting. But I hope that after the last presentation, we could skip the wrap-up session. It was so rich in itself, and for all of us, it was so full in content, in giving us ways of approaching our students, ways of approaching life problems, solving them. Things that we consider as problems are not problems at all. So this was, in that sense, it was, I think, at least for me, it was a first in all Bologna events. So I think it would be very difficult in putting.
It will
more.
be difficult to top that, right?
Yes,
that's
exactly.
yeah, I fully agree. Yeah.
But let's try because
Okay.
it was so enriching.
Okay, thank you, Colin.
Well, just like when I originally got the reading materials for these 2 days and then through the titles of the different workshops, what immediately struck me was I think you could take any of the titles of the workshops and do a full 2 days on any of them. Certainly, for example, the different approaches to learning. I mean, modernising curricula is just an enormous topic, and like for the next one or possibly one down the road, to pick one aspect of it and really do that in a detailed way, and that when people go home, they can take practical instances of best practice and detailed best plans and bring them back and apply them at home. But that would just, now maybe that's not practical, but that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, okay, it's important to get whatever ideas you have. I mean, then we'll see how we can put them into practice. Of course, Wim.
Well, I agree with my colleagues already. After what we've seen from Liv, after that wrap-up session, that's well, no.
Yeah, I know.
Not anymore. Thank you.
Okay.
Maybe I just have one suggestion, because first in Brussels, every closing session is very, very interesting. Today we have excellent presentation of the ladies, and in Brussels, for example, it's every time it's something special. First time in Brussels we had Frank de Wind. He was in NASA space station, so I hope in Lisbon will be also somebody extraordinary.
Well, thanks for the question. From a quality assurance perspective, it's always important to move on. Well, I concur fully with all the colleagues that said that it was a really, really good seminar. So thank you very much for the organization of both the content and the practical organizations, I would like to say. But I fully agree actually with what my Irish colleague just said. I also think that probably goes a bit generally for the Bologna experts trainings. That, well, those complex topics, also mobility, the last one for instance, it's really something very, very broad to tackle. And I would also say that maybe at this point of Bologna implementation it would be better to be a bit more specific, but to go really in detail there. But of course, what is then the backdraw a bit is that of course not everyone might be so attached to this issue, or because it's then much more special and much more specific. So what I actually liked quite a lot was the format that you now tried out of the open space. So what could balance this out a bit maybe would be to have this open space again, maybe have it even a bit longer, so that next to this very specific topic of the seminar overall, there would still be possibility to go a bit further in the open space.
Yeah.
And connected to that, I think in the open space that was very good as a first try. I think what would be good is to, from there, get a bit more practical good practices to take home in a way. It's of course always very difficult, but that is something that I think can be very easily used then at home, in our institutions, in our environments where we work. So that would be very cool if we could focus a bit more maybe on good practices.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. I think these are all very valuable suggestions that we as organizers will take on board, and we will discuss it and try to move along the road that you have suggested. In fact, I would like to start my round of thank yous to different people now. Please stay here. I will be assisted by capable UNICA organizer Giorgio, who has a list. First of all, I would like to ask the students, our student helpers, to come out here to receive a small box of, I suppose it's a small box, maybe it's a big box, no. Okay, economic organizers. Eme, Shima, Anders and Ljubljana. Okay, they are outside guarding the... Okay. So I was right, because I've just been told it's one box for 2 students. No, but there are different, they can easily, different bars, and they can easily split. I'm not sure whenever we think about chocolate now, we will always think of what chocolate means as a dinner for an explorer, right? Okay, so come on, please. Then I would like to thank Anders, who has momentarily disappeared. So can you ask Anders to come in? And somebody has been working there as a technician. I'm not sure we've ever seen him or her, but we would also like to thank him. Knut and Erik. Doris, who introduced the University of Oslo and gave a very inspiring talk about how to mingle, that was, I think, teaching, education and research, okay? So we will ask Anders then to transmit a box of chocolate to her, and maybe we'll see her tonight. Also, Hege Bolstad Petersen, who is not here, will also transmit. And Torbjörn Gröner, okay, he will also receive a box of chocolate in absentia. And there is one special box of thanks that I want to convey. And that box goes to somebody who counts things when he talks about ECTS, when he talks about the diploma supplement, when he talks about guides. So this is Ruud's last conference, as far as I have been told. Ruud, thank you very much for continuous input. Leave them in Oslo so that you have something when you come here to study, that you have a reserve. Okay? Thank you. So, after that, the plenary session is finished and we'll meet at the bus when we go to dinner. Thank you very much. You've been... Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.